Something that has come to my attention in the last few weeks, there's been more and more interest in money and development projects, protocols, developers moving towards developing decentralized finance applications on top of the Bitcoin network rather than on top of Ethereum or Solana or some of these other networks. A company called Portal raised $34 million. There's a company or group called Citria that's building ZK roll-ups on top of Bitcoin, with the idea being you can have a kind of a transaction layer that settles or memorializes on top of the Bitcoin network. Now, I think this is really important. As much as I've talked about decentralized finance, as much as I've talked about the programmability of money that Ethereum and other smart contract networks give you, Bitcoin is still the safest, most secure network that we've ever seen. It's still the most decentralized, without a doubt. So it makes sense that teams want to build decentralized finance protocols on top of it, because the narrative that Bitcoin has gone to now, which is Bitcoin, the asset, the crypto asset, lower B, Bitcoin, the crypto asset. Yes, it has the verifiably scarce supply of 21 million. It now has the ETF, which means people can get exposure to Bitcoin without actually owning Bitcoin, which takes away a lot of the utility. It takes away a lot of the revolutionary aspect and the value of Bitcoin. And so if the Bitcoin network becomes nothing more than processing blocks, which are just people sending Bitcoin potentially back and forth to each other, but most people doing nothing but holding on to Bitcoin and doing nothing, eventually it becomes a network that does nothing but keep a record, and that's it, and nothing's really moving on it. And at that point, is there really a whole lot of value there? And what we're seeing is teams going, look, we want to build something else we're able to do on top of the Bitcoin network, because again, it's the safest, most secure, most decentralized. And so that's where we see some money going, because, as much as we like Ethereum and, Solana's got the speed and low cost, and Ethereum, has a huge network and the most developers on it and everything else, Bitcoin is still the king in terms of decentralization, safety, security. If you said, Adam, we're going to keep track of the title on your home, and it's just, we're keeping track of it, and we have to make sure that everyone knows that your home is yours. And if you are going to choose a network to keep track of that, I'm going to choose Bitcoin just about every time, because again, safest, most secure. And I can always go back to it and go, look, I can prove that I own my home, because I don't care about speed at that point. I don't care about cheap. I care about making sure that is still there. But the Bitcoin blockchain has limited space, right? It has limited space in each 10-minute block. Each 10-minute block only has 1 megabyte of space. We have to figure out how to put more transactions in there, how to put more usability and programmability into that space. And I think applications, or the goal to build applications like this, is really important for Bitcoin. And I think it's important to think about, because right now, so much of the value of Bitcoin is built around, there's only 21 million actual Bitcoin. And, it's decentralized. We know what the issuance policy is, but there's still not a whole lot you can do on it. And what we've seen with the experimentation on Ethereum and Solana and such is we realize you can put more aspects of the financial system onto public blockchains, onto these decentralized networks. So why wouldn't you want to put it onto Bitcoin? And I say all that to say there has to be value in having these miners attach computers to electricity and to the Bitcoin network and process transactions. There has to be something to those transactions above and beyond trading Bitcoin back and forth. And if you have more applications, if you have more ability to run transactions, to have people fight for block space for something other than I traded Bitcoin, you're going to have more value in the network, because the miners are going to want to do that. There's going to be more transactions fees, and it's going to be more important to us to be able to settle some things, not everything, but some financial aspects on the Bitcoin network. And that, to me, potentially adds value to the Bitcoin network, which means it adds value to Bitcoin, the crypto asset. So I think it's really important to look at that from the perspective of, we've seen what's happened with decentralized networks and where they go with decentralized finance, and there's some experimentation, but there's also some good applications being built. And these teams that are trying to build that on top of the safest and most secure network, I think is really important for growing the network, for the value. We'll see, how well it works. We'll see how many people want to create these transactions and how fast they can be. And as I was talking to some people in our live session today, my feeling and my opinion, and I don't know if it's right, is there are some transactions that make sense to find space and memorialize on the Bitcoin network, because they don't have to be the fastest and they don't have to be the cheapest. As I say, buying a house, that's something that doesn't have to be the fastest transaction in the world. I don't have to buy my house in milliseconds. I can take a while to buy my house, but I want to make sure that that transaction and the record of that transaction is safe and secure forever. If I want to put my will on chain, for instance, I'm going to put it on the Bitcoin blockchain because it's the safest, most secure. It's going to be around the most. There are honestly the fewest people playing around with it and trying to financialize it. I think this is really important. I think it's important to have multiple settlement layers. And eventually, I think we live in a world where the different chains, they're interconnected, or we have the technological ability to look across all the chains and to have assets and to have data stored on all those chains that I can control from one or many wallets that give me the ability to control those. So I think it's interesting to look at decentralized finance type applications that are built on top of the Bitcoin network, again, because there are there are definitely financial transactions that don't need to be super fast, that don't need to be super cheap, but need to be really safe and secure and need to be stored forever, and yet still transparent enough that I can go call back to them. So I think the advent and the growth of attempts at decentralized finance being built on top of Bitcoin are really important for the overall financial system, and it's really important for Bitcoin, the network, and therefore really important for Bitcoin, the asset.